I thought I knew my wife after 15 years of marriage. I believed our locked bedroom door was broken until I heard a man's voice coming from inside. What I uncovered went far beyond a single fling. It was a tangled network of deceit that nearly destroyed me. But when my unfaithful wife returned expecting her double life to carry on, she walked into an empty house. That was only the beginning. My name is Lloyd Fox. I'm 47 years old and I've been a regional manager for a restaurant chain for the past 12 years. It's demanding, but it pays well enough to support my wife, Bridget, our 7-year-old daughter Emma, our 17-year-old son Theodore, and my late brother's children Owen and Lily, who moved in after he died 3 years ago. Owen is 14 now, Lily's 12, and they've come to feel like my own. For a decade and a half I believed Bridget and I had built something real. She worked part-time doing social media marketing from home so she could juggle the kids' schedules. We had routines, small rituals, private jokes. Sure, marriages have rough spots, but I truly thought we were okay. The day everything broke began like any ordinary Tuesday in October. I finished my regional inspection earlier than expected and decided to surprise the family by getting home around 4 p.m. instead of my usual 7 o'clock. I grabbed the fancy cupcakes from the bakery that Emma loves, figuring we'd celebrate nothing in particular. When I pulled into the driveway, Bridget's car sat where it always did, normal, since she worked at home, but the second I stepped through the front door something felt off. The house was too quiet. Normally I'd hear Emma playing in the living room or Bridget on a call in her home office, but there was only silence. I called out, "Big kids, anybody home?" No reply. Emma should have been back from school by then, and Theodore usually arrived around that time too. Owen and Lily's bus got in at 3:30. I set the cupcakes on the kitchen counter and made my way to Bridget's office. The door was shut, which struck me as strange. In all our years together she never closed that door during the day unless on an important video call, and even then she left it cracked. I knocked softly. "Bridget, you in there, Lloyd?" Her voice answered from the other side, sounding startled, almost breathless. "You're home early. I'm just finishing up some work. Give me a few minutes, okay?" There was something in her tone that made my stomach drop. She sounded winded, like she'd been running or lifting something heavy. I tried the handle. Lock. In 15 years she had never locked that office door. What kind of work needs a locked door? I asked, keeping my voice light. "Client confidentiality stuff," she shot back. "You know how it is. I'll be out in just a minute." Then I heard it, a low rustle, fabric shifting, and a man's voice murmuring something I couldn't catch. My heart pounded so loud I could feel it in my ears. "Bridget, who's in there with you?" The pause that followed lasted about 10 seconds too long. "Nobody," she eventually said, but her voice had that thin, high pitch it takes on when she lies. "I'm watching a training video." The volume's up pretty loud. I stepped closer and pressed my ear to the door. More movement. Definite shifting. Then a clear male throat. "Open the door, Bridget." My voice came out harsher than I meant. "Lie, please," she said. "I'll be out in a minute." Right then I stopped being the trusting husband and turned into something else entirely. I didn't wait for her to answer. After 15 years of marriage and raising 4 kids, I could tell when she was being dishonest. The noises behind the door, the man's voice, the panic in Bridget's tone, they added up to something I never imagined facing. I stepped back and slammed my shoulder into the door hard. The frame splintered on the second blow, and the door burst open, slamming into the wall. What I saw that day is seared into my memory. Bridget stood by her desk chair, her blouse misbuttoned and hair a mess. Near the window a man I didn't recognize was scrambling to pull on his shirt. He looked younger than me, maybe mid-30s, with the build of a personal trainer or someone who lives in the gym. For a few seconds none of us spoke. The 3 of us froze in that terrible scene, like performers who'd forgotten their lines. "Lloyd," Bridget whispered, barely audible. "I can explain." The stranger, this man who had been inside my home, in my wife's office, grabbed his shoes and moved toward the door. I stepped directly into his path. "I don't think so, buddy," I said, my voice unervingly steady. "You're not leaving until I get answers." He glanced at Bridget, then at me, trying to decide if he could push past. He was bigger than me, but I've managed restaurant crews and difficult vendors for years. I know how to stand tall when needed. "Look, man," he stammered, voice trembling. "This is between you and your wife. I should go." "No," I replied, folding my arms. "This is my business now, too." "What's your name?" "Lance," he mumbled, eyes downcast. "Lance what?" "Turner." I turned to Bridget, who was slumped in her chair looking like she might be sick. "How long, Bridget?" I asked. She didn't answer at first, so I demanded it louder. "How long has this been going on?" 3 months, she breathed. 3 months. While I was pulling 12-hour shifts to keep our restaurant profitable. While I helped Owen with algebra and read Emma bedtime stories. While I was being husband and father, she was sneaking around with Lance Turner. "Where are the kids?" I blurted, the quiet in the house suddenly making sense. "Emma's at soccer practice," Bridget said softly. "Theodore's at work. Owen and Lily are at a friend's." Something inside me snapped, not a blind rage, but cold and focused. "Get out," I told Lance. He didn't need another order. He grabbed his jacket and fled the room. I heard the front door slam seconds later. It was just Bridget and me, staring across the ruined remains of what we had. "Lloyd, please," she began. "Let me explain. It's not what you think." I laughed, but it wasn't a laugh. It was hollow. I had just caught her half-dressed with another man in our house. What else was there to think? She smoothed her skirt and said, "Our marriage has been dead for years. We're like roommates, not husband and wife." I needed to feel alive again. "So you chose to feel alive with Lance Turner while the kids were at school," I said. "It just happened," she insisted. "It wasn't planned. It just happened weekly." "These things don't just happen, Bridget. You made choices. A lot of choices." I left her office without another word. There was nothing left to discuss in that moment. She had chosen, and I was about to choose mine. The first thing I did was call Theodore at the auto parts store. "Theodore Fox speaking," he answered professionally. "Ted, it's Dad," I said. "I need you to come home right now. Is everything okay?" I heard concern in his voice. Theodore might be 17, but he's always acted older than his years. "Just come home. Don't ask questions yet." Then I rang Emma's soccer coach and told them I'd be picking her up early. I contacted the parents where Owen and Lily were staying. While I waited for the kids to return, I went upstairs to our bedroom and pulled 2 large duffel bags from the closet. I began packing clothes for myself and the kids. Not everything, just enough for a few days. I didn't know where we'd go, but I knew we couldn't stay in that house that night. Bridget appeared in the doorway, watching me fold clothes. "Lloyd, what are you doing?" she asked. "I'm taking the kids somewhere safe," I said without looking up. "Safe from what?" "I'm their mother." I stopped and faced her. "Are you?" Because mothers don't usually bring strange men into the house when their children could walk in at any moment. She protested that the kids weren't supposed to be home. That was her defense for timing the affair around their schedules. She crossed her arms. "You're being dramatic. We need to have an adult conversation. We're done talking, Bridget. You made your choice when you locked that office door." Theodore came home first, seeing the packed bags and the tension. "Dad," he said softly. "What's going on?" "Your mother and I are having some problems," I told him. "We're going to stay somewhere else for a few days while we figure things out." Theodore nodded. He was wise enough not to press for details. When Emma arrived, I crouched to her level. "Hey, sweetheart, how about we go on a little adventure? Just you, me, Theodore, Owen, and Lily." Her eyes lit up like camping, something like that. Owen and Lily came home to find us loading the car. Owen, always sharp, immediately sensed something was off. "Uncle Lloyd," he whispered, pulling me aside. "Are you and Aunt Bridget getting divorced?" The question landed heavier than I'd expected. Owen had already lost his parents. The last thing I wanted was for him and Lily to feel as if they were losing another family. "I don't know yet, buddy," I answered honestly. "But whatever happens, you and Lily are family. That won't change." As we pulled away from the house, I couldn't stop picturing Bridget returning later, expecting to pick up where her double life left off, only to open the door to an empty home. My unfaithful wife would come back from her date with her lover blissfully unaware that the kids and I were gone. That would be the opening act of my revenge. We checked into a Hampton about 20 minutes from home. It wasn't luxurious, but it had a pool Emma could use and adjoining rooms so I could keep everyone nearby. While I registered us into 2 connecting rooms, a clarity I hadn't felt in months washed over me. The kids adjusted remarkably well. Theodore helped get everyone organized while Emma wanted to explore the hotel the minute we set her down. Owen and Lily stayed close to me, still absorbing the shock. "Uncle Lloyd," Lily asked softly as we sat by the pool that evening, "is this because of what Aunt Bridget did?" Kids notice more than we think. Lily had always been perceptive, probably because losing her parents forced her to grow up quickly. "Yes," I told her plainly. "Aunt Bridget made choices that hurt our family. Are we going to be okay?" Owen wanted to know. "We're going to be better than okay," I said with conviction. "I promise." My phone had been going off non-stop since we'd left. Bridget's messages swung between fury, pleading, and threats. I waited until the kids were watching TV in their room to read them. "Lloyd, you can't just take the kids like this. We need to talk. Come home. You're being childish. This affects the children too. If you don't bring them back, I'm calling the police." I showed the texts to Theodore, who'd become my unofficial second-in-command. "She's really going to call the cops on you for taking us away for a few days?" he asked incredulously. "She might try," I said. "But legally, I can take you kids where I need to. I'm your father. This isn't kidnapping." That evening I opened my laptop and started searching for divorce attorneys. I also began writing down everything I could remember from the last few months. Bridget's shifted behavior, odd appointments, new clothes, and her sudden obsession with fitness. I rang my brother-in-law Pete, who'd gone through a nasty divorce 5 years earlier. "Lloyd," Pete said when he picked up. "What's happening?" "Bridget's having an affair," I told him plainly. "I caught her with a guy in our house today." A long silence followed. "Jesus. Lloyd. I'm sorry, man. What can I do? I need the name of the lawyer you used." "Gerald Hendris. He's pricey, but he gets results when needed. I was going to call him for you." "Yeah, tell him it's urgent." After we hung up, I noticed a feeling I hadn't had in years. Determination. Not simply anger or hurt, those were there, but a focused purpose. My phone rang. It was Anita, Bridget's best friend. "Lloyd," she said cautiously, "Bridget called me. She's really upset." I didn't deny it. "Look, I know it's none of my business, but aren't you overreacting? Taking the kids and leaving like that?" I was quiet for a long moment. "Anita, did you know?" "No," she answered at first, then, "What? About Lance Turner? About the affair?" Another pause. I suspected something, but I didn't say anything. It wasn't my place. It wasn't your place to warn me my wife was cheating, I thought. Instead you called to tell me I'm overreacting after the fact. I hung up. If Bridget's closest friend had suspicions and stayed silent, how many others had watched our marriage unravel while I remained blind? Gerald Hendris called back at 7 o'clock the next morning. His tone was efficient and professional. "Lloyd Fox, Pete said you need legal representation." "Adultery case." "Yes, I said. I caught my wife with a man in our house yesterday." "Do you have evidence?" he asked. "I saw them together." "There may be more if we look." "Good. We'll need everything. My retainer is $5,000. I didn't hesitate. "Done." After breakfast with the kids, I headed back toward town while they stayed at the hotel pool with Theodore keeping an eye on them. I had a mission, and it expanded beyond Lance Turner. While digging through Bridget's recent behavior patterns, an email name kept recurring: Daniel Stone. The name nagged until it clicked. Daniel had been Bridget's boyfriend in college before I came along. They'd dated 2 years. Mutual friends had described it as serious. I parked outside the coffee shop where Daniel worked as a manager. Through the window I watched him go about his shift. Still athletic, now peppered with gray, clearly keeping fit. I went in, ordered coffee, and watched him. He didn't recognize me at first. Understandable, we'd only met at a few college parties. "Daniel Stone," I said when he handed my cup. He looked up, puzzled. "Do I know you?" "Lloyd Fox. I'm married to Bridget Richardson. Bridget Fox now." His face shifted from confusion to something like guilt. "Lloyd," he said carefully, "what brings you here?" "Just catching up," I replied casually. "Bridget mentioned you'd been in touch." He looked around, uneasy. "Maybe not the best place to talk." "Why not? We're just old friends." Daniel stepped out from behind the counter and suggested we move to the parking lot. There he weighed his words. "How long have you and Bridget been talking?" I asked directly. He sighed. "About 6 months. She reached out on Facebook, said she was having a rough patch." "What kind of rough patch?" "She said you two were distant, that you were having problems." I nodded slowly. "So you decided to help her through this rough patch?" "We just talked," he said defensively. "She needed someone to listen." I held up my phone. "Then why are there hotel receipts with both your names?" Daniel's face went white. "That was only twice. We were confused." So it wasn't just Lance Turner, there was Daniel Stone too. My wife hadn't only cheated, she was reviving an old flame while starting a new one. "Does Lance Turner know about you?" I asked. Daniel looked bewildered. "Who's Lance Turner?" I almost laughed at the mess. Bridget was juggling multiple relationships and none of her partners knew about the others. "Never mind," I told him. "Thanks for being honest. More honest than my wife." I left him standing in the parking lot, stunned. 2 men accounted for, probably more to find. I tracked Lance Turner to the gym where he worked as a personal trainer. Peak Performance Fitness was one of those upscale places where middle-aged folks pay to feel younger, which felt painfully ironic. He was training a client, an older woman clearly more interested in his attention than the exercise. Once the session ended and he wiped down the equipment, I approached. "Lance Turner," I said evenly. He recognized me immediately. Fear flickered across his face. "Look man, I don't want trouble," he blurted. "Neither do I replied. "I want an adult conversation." He glanced around, likely weighing whether to call security. "What do you want to talk about?" he asked. "My wife and you. And what happens next?" He dropped his towel. "There's nothing to discuss. It's over between us." "Really?" "Because her phone shows you were texting as recently as this morning." His color drained. "You're going through my wife's phone," he shot back. "I'm protecting my family," I said. "Something you should understand since you've made yourself part of it." We stared at each other for a long beat. Lance was younger, bigger, more muscular, but his eyes told the whole story. Surface, no substance. "How long have you been sleeping with married women, Lance? Is my wife your first, or are there others?" He shifted, uncomfortable. "That's none of your business." "Actually, it is. If you're in the habit of breaking families, other husbands deserve to know who you are." His voice went low. "Bridget told me you two were separated. She said you were getting divorced." I laughed, but it carried no humor. "Did she? What else did she tell you? That you were controlling? That you didn't care about her anymore? And you believed that? She was lonely. She needed someone who understood her." "What you mean is she was easy prey, looking for excitement and willing to believe whatever you fed her." His jaw tightened. "It wasn't like that," he protested. "What's your routine? Find an unhappy wife, tell her how special she is, paint her husband as neglectful, and then move in." "You don't know what you're talking about," he replied. I opened my phone and showed photos Pete had pulled from social media. "Recognize these women? All married, around Bridget's age, all getting close to fitness instructors who look like you." He stared at the pictures as his bravado drained away. "Here's what's going to happen, Lance. You vanish from my wife's life. No calls, no texts, no accidental grocery store run-ins. If I find you've contacted her again, I'll make sure every woman in this town knows exactly what kind of man you are." "You can't threaten me," he said, but the conviction was gone. "I'm not threatening. I'm promising. My wife made a choice, but you chose to pursue a married woman. Own it." Gerald Hendricks had everything ready to file for divorce within 48 hours. The proof against Bridget was damning. 2 simultaneous affairs, financial deception, and strangers brought into our family home. But life throws curveballs at the worst times. I was going through legal papers in the hotel lobby when chest pain hit. Sharp, stabbing, cold sweat breaking out across my skin. At first I blamed stress. I had enough reasons to be overwhelmed. Theodore found me slumped in a chair, struggling to breathe. "Dad!" he shouted as he ran over. "What's wrong?" "Call 911. I managed to gasp before everything went black. I woke up in the cardiac unit at Memorial Hospital with Theodore, Owen, Lily, and Emma gathered around my bed. A stern doctor in her 50s explained things about blood pressure and stress-induced cardiac events. "Mr. Fox," she said when she saw I was awake, "you've had what we call a hypertensive crisis. Your blood pressure spiked to dangerous levels, causing severe chest pain and a temporary loss of consciousness." "Am I having a heart attack?" I asked. "No," she replied, "but you're at serious risk of one if we don't control this immediately." "How much stress have you been under lately?" Theodore spoke before I could. "My parents are getting divorced. Dad just found out Mom was cheating on him." The doctor nodded. "That would explain it. I'm starting you on medication, and you need to reduce stress as much as possible." "I can't eliminate stress," I protested. "I'm in the middle of a custody battle. Then you need healthier coping strategies, or next time you might be here for a real heart attack." After she left, Emma climbed carefully onto my hospital bed. "Daddy, are you going to be okay?" she asked, voice trembling. "I'll be fine, sweetheart," I said, though I wasn't entirely certain. My phone buzzed with a text from Bridget. "I heard you're in the hospital. I'm coming to see you," I replied. "Don't." But she arrived anyway. I watched through the window as she argued with a nurse over visiting rules. When she finally stepped into the room, she looked genuinely worried. "Lloyd," she said softly, "I'm so sorry." "Sorry about what?" I asked, about the affairs or about the fact that discovering them nearly killed me. I never wanted this to happen, but it did. And now you're in a hospital bed with heart problems while our kids are terrified you might die. She sat down in the chair beside me. "What can I do?" she asked. "You can sign the divorce papers Gerald is preparing. You can agree to joint custody without fighting, and you can remove yourself from our lives until I'm well enough to handle this mess you've created." For the first time since I uncovered everything, Bridget looked genuinely ashamed. I was discharged after 2 days with blood pressure meds and strict orders to avoid stress. Easier said than done when your life has been appended. The kids and I returned to the hotel, but the tone had shifted. This was no longer a temporary escape. It had become serious crisis management. "Uncle Lloyd," Owen asked as we sat by the pool that evening, "are you going to be okay to take care of us?" The question hit the heart of my fear. If my health worsened, what would happen to Owen and Lily? They had already lost their parents. The idea of them losing me too was unbearable. "I'm going to take better care of myself," I promised. "Eat right, exercise, and not let Bridget's problems become mine." Easier said than done. The next morning Gerald Hendricks called with news that spiked my anxiety again. "Lloyd, we have a problem," he said. "Bridget's lawyer is claiming you're mentally unstable. They're using your hospitalization to argue you're unfit for custody." "That's ridiculous," I protested. "It was a stress reaction to discovering my wife's affairs. We know that, but they'll spin it as an inability to handle parental responsibilities under pressure." I felt tightness in my chest starting up again. "What do we do?" I asked. "We fight," he replied. "But you need to show you're managing your health. Regular doctor's visits, taking medication, stress management. We must convince the court you're taking this seriously." After the call, I realized Bridget was playing a sharper game than I'd thought. She wasn't just defending herself. She'd gone on offense and was weaponizing my health against me. That evening she rang directly. "Lloyd," she said, "I heard about what my lawyer is planning. It's not my idea." "No," I said. "I told her about your hospital stay because I worried about you, not to use it against you, but she's using it anyway." "I can stop it," she offered. "I can tell her to back off." "What do you want in return, Bridget?" I asked. A long pause. "I want to see the kids. I want shared custody. I want us to work this out without destroying each other." For the first time since catching her with Lance, she sounded like the woman I'd married 15 years ago. But I'd learned not to trust appearances. "I'll think about it," I said, though I was already plotting my next step. The custody hearing was set for a cold Thursday in November. I'd been managing my blood pressure with meds and doctor's appointments, but stress mounted as the date neared. Gerald Hendricks met me at the courthouse steps. "Stay calm," he whispered. "We have the evidence, the moral high ground, and the children's best interests on our side." Bridget arrived with her attorney, looking composed. She'd had her hair done and chosen a conservative outfit, clearly aiming to present as a devoted mother. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, listened as both sides made their cases. Bridget's lawyer painted me as unstable, someone who overreacted and whose health issues made him unfit for primary custody. But Gerald dismantled their arguments. He methodically presented the affairs, Lance Turner and Daniel Stone, the lies, the financial deceit, and crucially, the children's testimony. Theodore, now 18 and able to speak for himself, was devastating. "Your Honor," he said plainly, "my father has been the stable parent. While my mother carried on relationships with other men, my father worked to support our family and took care of our cousins after they lost their parents. I want to live with my father." Even Emma, gently guided by our lawyer, managed to say she felt safer with me. The judge's ruling was firm. Primary custody awarded to me, with supervised visitation for Bridget until she could prove stability. The family home would be sold and the proceeds split. Bridget would be ordered to repay the money she'd spent on her affairs. As we left the courthouse, Bridget approached one last time. "Lloyd," she said softly, "I know I can't undo what I did, but I never stopped loving you." "If that's what you call love," I replied, "then I'm better off without it." 6 months later, Owen, Lily, Theodore, Emma, and I moved into a smaller house across town. It wasn't as grand as the old place, but it was ours. No lies, no secrets, no strangers hiding behind locked doors. My blood pressure was under control, and my bond with the kids was stronger than ever. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. Bridget eventually relocated to another state to start over. She sent cards on birthdays and holidays, but she became what she should have been from the start, a distant memory of a life that nearly destroyed us. 1 year after catching Bridget with Lance Turner, I stood in the kitchen of our new home making pancakes for the kids on a Saturday morning, our new tradition. Weekend breakfast together. No phones, no distractions, just family time. Emma barreled in wearing her soccer uniform, ready for her game. "Daddy, will you come watch me play today?" she asked. "Wouldn't miss it, sweetheart." Theodore appeared in the doorway, fresh from his first semester of college. "Dad, I need to tell you something." My heart jumped. After everything, surprises still made me nervous. "Mom called me yesterday," he continued. She wanted to ask if she could come to Emma's graduation ceremony next month. Elementary school graduation. Small, but Bridget had already missed so many milestones. "What do you think?" I asked. "I think Emma deserves to have her mother there, even if it's strange for us," he answered. "That's my son, wise beyond his years." Owen and Lily tumbled down the stairs, arguing over the last slice of bacon. They'd both flourished over the past year. Owen made the honor roll and Lily joined the drama club. Stability had let them be kids again. "Uncle Lloyd," Lily tugged my sleeve, "Mrs. Patterson wants to know if you're coming to the school fundraiser next Friday." Mrs. Patterson, Lily's teacher, was a divorced woman around my age who'd been making increasingly clear attempts to spend time with me. The kids had noticed everything, of course. "Are you going to ask her out?" Owen teased with a grin. "Maybe," I admitted. "Would that be okay with you guys?" "As long as she's nice to us," Emma said practically. "And as long as she doesn't lock any doors," Theodore added with dark humor. I laughed, surprised we could joke about it now. Time really does heal, even deep wounds. That evening, after Emma's soccer match, a 3-2 win, I sat on the back porch with a beer, watching the kids play in the yard. Theodore was teaching Owen to throw a curveball while Emma and Lily worked on cartwheels. My phone buzzed. A text from Gerald Hendricks. Bridget's lawyer called. She wants to discuss increasing her visitation time. A year ago, that message would have spiked my blood pressure. Now I felt only fatigue. Bridget would always be part of our lives as the children's mother, but she no longer had the power to shatter our peace. I texted back to set a meeting but made it clear nothing would change without the kids' agreement. As the sun sank behind the backyard trees, I realized something unexpected. I was happy. Not the conditional, complicated happiness of my marriage, but genuine contentment built from the ashes of betrayal. My unfaithful wife had come home smiling from her date that day, but the kids and I were already gone. It had been the opening move of my revenge, yes, but more importantly, it was the beginning of our real life.